In this video, I'm going to show you how to get your latency from looking like this to something like this. Let's go. So, we got a bunch of stuff to do. It's going to be pretty long. Here's the full list. I will link all of this in the description. It's, got all of the links for downloads. And yeah, I had pretty bad latency. I managed to fix it with all of this. So, it's a lot of things, so should be good for your latency. However bad it is, should be good. All right, so let's start with downloading the LatencyMon, which is the software we're gonna use to measure the latency. So download it from the link right here and open it up. It looks like this. I'll actually start it running and I'll keep it running while I'm recording. And at the end of the video, we can see the results, how the latency is with some programs running. So if you want to see the results, watch till the end, if you know what I mean. All right, let's go. Let's start. So the first generic advice most people will give you is to update your drivers. So we're gonna do that first. If you have an Intel CPU, you can use this program I'm linking here, which is this Intel driver and support assistant. So you can just install it. I have it installed already. And basically it looks like this. And it will scan your PC and it will tell you if you have any software updates available. So for me, I have the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi, so I don't need those since I don't use Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. However, if you had like chipset or something in here, then you definitely want to do the update. And yeah, so that's one way, or you can do it manually, just check it by hand, but this is much easier. So yeah, I'm sure there's also a program like this for AMD. I don't know what's the name, you can find it, I'm sure. All right, and then to the generic Windows updates. So self-explanatory, basic stuff. All right, so the first thing after doing the drivers, the first thing which we want to do to reduce the latency is to disable the devices which we are not using. So like those drivers are constantly loaded, so they can waste like CPU cycles, and you don't want that since it can create latency and those interrupts, and so all of the stuff which we are not using, we're gonna disable. Go to device manager, and in here, what to disable? Well, let me show you what I disabled. I'm not using Bluetooth, so it's disabled. To disable, right click, go right click and just disable device, and it will be disabled. I'm not using Wi-Fi, so I got Wi-Fi disabled. This is Microsoft GS Wavetable Synth. This has got something to do with music production. It's like a synth from Microsoft. I'm not sure. If you're not messing with anything like that, you can disable it safely. It won't be a problem. And yeah, so it doesn't need to be running. Next thing, NVIDIA high definition audio. That's the audio that is inside your monitor. If you do have integrated speakers in your monitor, if you're using those, then you don't want to disable this. But if you don't, then there's no reason for this to run. You should also have in here the inbuilt audio driver from your motherboard, so like a high definition driver or something. And if you have an audio interface like I do, then you might want to disable it. I already disabled mine in the BIOS, which I'll get to later, so it's not even displaying in here, but can also disable them here. Next thing, composite bus enumerator. So this thing has got something to do with enumerating things. I am not sure. I did the research when I was disabling it, so it is fine. I did all of this like 3 weeks ago or so, all of those fixes, and it's been working, no problem. So that's something you can disable, or just research it yourself if you're not sure. All this is based on a guide. I will later tell you everything about it at the end of the video. All right. Next thing is the high precision event timer. Is the HPET. This can actually give many people an increase in FPS and stuff like that. So this is a thing that fixes some problems for some people. So this is something you definitely want disabled. This PCIe Express route is from the integrated audio from the, I think from the monitor, so from the GPU audio, integrated NVIDIA audio. All right, so that's disabled, that's why it's here. Virtual drive enumerator, that is for the virtual drive. So if you want to mount like an ISO file, like, you know, this is something, whatever. This is from the MSI. Anyway, if you have an MSI file, then you need this running, but I got it disabled. I just enable it when I need to mount something. So not using it right now, so I don't disable it. If you have some virtual drives running, then don't disable this one. Remote desktop, that's for the remote desktop. I'm not using it, don't plan on using it, so it is disabled. You know, if you're using the remote desktop, then you might want to keep this enabled. And that is it in the device manager. You can also view the devices by connection and disable from here. And you can disable the whole PCIe bridges. Then the next thing which we want to change in here is the disabling USB power management for our USB devices. So if you have a mouse plugged in, then Windows can power it down to save you know, electricity, and you want to uncheck this box. If it is available, it will not be available on all the ports, but you want to uncheck it just to be sure that Windows is not powering down your devices, and you know. So just on all of the ones where it's available, uncheck this one in power management, and it should be fine. And with that, we are done in the device manager. So let's close that. And the next thing is the Windows settings. So we'll start with the power plan. Power plan can definitely be the thing that gives you the biggest difference in terms of latency and everything. So if your power plan is not set to ultimate performance, you can use this command right here. Just open the CMD, open as run as administrator, and it put this command, you know, copy, paste, and hit enter, and it will show you the setting, like it will appear in the settings. Or you can keep using the high performance, it's also fine. This is like a bit more optimized for performance, I guess. Not much actual difference, but yeah. And then we want to go to system. We want to go to control panel to view all of the power settings. Go to control panel, hardware and sound, power options, and if you just enable this ultimate performance, it will be here. So just check it as the plan you're using right now, and let's go to change plan settings, and we want to change advanced power settings. And here are the options which will probably give you the biggest boost in performance. The one which I disabled, which gave me the highest decrease in latency, was the core parking. In here, you should probably not see those options if you have not messed with this previously. So in order to show those options, you need to go to this website, download Power Settings Explorer from this link here, the link to the forum, and download it. I don't think you need to install it, so just download it. Power Settings Explorer, there it is. Run as administrator, and that's how the program looks. And basically, it's got this column. It's got this column of hidden attributes for those. So you want to scroll down to processor power management, and you see those hidden check marks. And if it's unchecked, then it's not hidden. So you want to uncheck it. So processor performance core parking minimum cores, uncheck this one so that we see this setting. Then processor idle demote threshold, uncheck it. Processor idle disable, uncheck it. I will tell you about the idle disable, so I don't recommend disabling it all the time, but just to see the setting, uncheck it. Processor idle promote threshold, uncheck it. And minimum processor state, uncheck it. And the maximum processor state, also uncheck it. Yeah, all right. And then hit apply in the bottom left corner, and it will all show in the settings. So then we can go to settings once again, and you will see all of those options right here under the processor power management. So let's expand it once again. And in here, we want to what we want to change. So idle demote and idle promote, we want to set this to 100%. So we don't want the PC to be promoting. Promote means that it sets it to idle. So we don't want to set it to idle state. So that is a setting that can help many people already. And yeah, so that's a great setting to change. So we start with that. Then we have the minimum and maximum processor state 100%. So we want it to run at maximum clocks all the time. So 100% on both. And yeah, then we got the core parking, which, like I said before, this is the thing that gave me the highest boost, and it was like day and night difference, the setting that changed the most. So let me demonstrate what it does. I will use process lasso to show you this. Yeah, we need to wait 15 seconds because it's process lasso, free version. Alright, so we got process lasso enabled. And as you can see, here are the cores and how they are working. And right now, performance core parking is set to 100%, which means 100% of cores are not parked. I will set it to, let's say, 40%. And now hit apply. And right now, 40% of the cores are only working. Maybe let's set it to 60, all right. So 60% of the cores are now active. So, you know, all of the threads are running in them. Windows will only use the rest of the cores if like they are needed. So this is something that can create a lot of latency because those cores are essentially powered down. It's a power saving feature. And yeah, so we want to set this to 100% to completely disable core parking, and all of the CPUs are running, and you know, whatever thread comes up, it can just be dealt with quicker. So that is a great setting. Then the next thing, which we might want to change, this is something I don't recommend doing, which is the disabling the idle. So this is like a power saving feature, but disabling idle is an even like a deeper power saving feature. So if we go to, I'll open hardware monitor to demonstrate this. So as you can see, my CPU is right now idling at 40%. I mean, 40 degrees. The power draw is around 50 watts. And now I will disable idle, hit apply. And as you can see, the temperatures instantly jump to like 50s. Power draw goes to 116 watts. And, you know, even though nothing is really running, just OBS, a bunch of other programs. So I don't recommend disabling this on a daily basis. Maybe while gaming you might want to, but in my opinion it's not worth the extra power draw. But you know, decide for yourself. I keep this one enabled. So yeah, so re-enable it. It should go back to 50 watts, 40 degrees, that's fine with me. However, this will give you lower latency, so depending on your system, you might want to disable idle also. All right. And so that is it for the power settings. Yeah, this should give you a nice boost. And let's move on to the next thing. So the next setting we want to change is the core isolation. So you can just type in here, core isolation. When I launch this, it is actually not showing because core isolation is like a anti-malware, I think, program or an option. However, if you disable virtualization in your CPU, then because it's tied to like a virtual machine running or something, then this setting will not be available. I did disable it. However, I later on disabled the virtualization, which we'll disable in a second also. So I don't have this setting. You might want to disable it. It can give you better performance. Optimization for windowed games, this one is not tied to latency directly, but if you have if you don't like, it's a good setting to have enabled for games in general. So if you're playing any windowed games, then this is a great setting to have on. If in case you have it off, then turn it on. So you want to go to settings, then system, display, graphics, and change the default graphics settings. And here it is, optimization for windowed games. So turn it on in case you have it off, and yeah, it's better than having it off. It's a good setting. All right. So with that, we're done with this. Now we're moving into the BIOS. So this is becoming a little bit more advanced, let's say, like not a huge deal, but still, you know, you need to go into the BIOS. So to get into your BIOS, reboot the PC, press the delete key, and you will be in the BIOS. Then what we will want to do is we will want to disable those 5 settings, starting with the iGPU, which is the integrated graphics. So if you have an Intel Core, let's say 13700K version, which has got the integrated graphics, and you're not using those like it is, so in my case, then you might want to disable this in the motherboard. So go to settings, advanced integrated graphics configuration, and turn the IGD multi-monitor to disabled. So that's the first setting. It will disable the integrated graphics. The second thing is hyperthreading, and this one is actually debatable. The thing is, if you have a CPU that doesn't have many cores, like 8 cores, let's say, you might want to, let's say you have 8 cores, and then you have 12 threads total. So let's say 4 of your cores are running 8 cores, so they are hyperthreading. So basically, what is hyperthreading? Hyperthreading means that for a single performance core, your Windows is allocating 2 threads, whereas a traditional core is running just 1 thread. So because in each cycle of the CPU, because each cycle of the CPU can process so much data that on a performance core, some of the data might be wasted. So by putting, so like the efficiency of 1 tick on a processor is more than is needed for 1 thread. So if you put 2 threads in here, then you can get a certain amount of work done faster with the CPU. However, by jamming 2 threads on a single core in the CPU, you need to put them together, and then you need to kind of disassemble them at the end of this computing system. So it can increase the latency, and it will. However, if you disable this, it will lower your performance of the CPU in multitasking scenarios. So for example, if I run a Cinebench test on the CPU with hyperthreading enabled, I will get a score around 30,500, something like that. And if I disable hyperthreading, then my Cinebench score drops all the way to 25,000. So it is a sizable loss in performance. However, the latency is lower with hyperthreading disabled, and also the temps of your CPU are much lower with hyperthreading disabled. So if you have many cores, like I have 16, so I don't mind a small performance loss from this. If you don't have many cores, then you might need to just experiment and see, because if you don't have enough cores, then it could be problematic. So I would say if you have 8 cores, then you should think about it. If you have 4, then don't bother for sure. And 12 threads, 8 cores, just test it out and see, I would say. If you have many cores, then disabling it is better for gaming, a bit worse for performance probably. But we want obviously the lowest latency for gaming, so it is disabled in this case. So to disable it, go to overclocking, advanced CPU configuration, hyperthreading, and change it to disabled. All right, and the next thing will be the virtual machine thing. So virtualization, you have 2 virtualizations. One is based on CPU and one is in the Windows or something like that. So to disable it, if you're not using a virtual machine or don't plan on using it, then disable Intel Virtualization Tech as well as Intel VTD Tech. So it's the other. So both of those are virtualization. I have both disabled, as you can see. So that takes care of it. And then Intel SysState. So Intel SysState and core parking is basically the same thing. The thing is, SysState is a global setting. So if you disable SysState, then it affects your whole CPU. And those are like power saving features. So you also want this disabled. So disable SysStates. Oh yeah, and the SysStates are in the overclocking advanced CPU configuration. Then the last thing which we want to disable is the HD audio controller. So that is the inbuilt audio controller in the motherboard, which I mentioned earlier. So you want to disable this if you're not using it. If you are using it, so you're plugging your headphones into like the plug in your PC, don't have like a audio interface or something, then don't disable it. But if you have an audio interface or a different audio card, then you can probably disable it and it will be no problem. All right, so that is the motherboard stuff done. I mean the BIOS stuff. And yeah, so we got all of this disabled and it should be good. The next thing, let's move on to the next one, which is the CMD. So the only CMD settings which I changed is the dynamic tick. So type in CMD, run as administrator, and dynamic tick is a power saving feature that is present in laptops mostly. That like when nothing is running, the Windows is can like disable an internal clock or something, and it can cause stutters and other stuff. So this setting can help many people. However, some people, especially people on laptops or on desktop also, some older computers, I read many cases of some stutters, some other stuff happening that's negative. So in case this gives you like a negative performance, something is not working properly, you know, loading slow and stuff like that, then you can use this command right here and it will delete the value in the registry. So it will go back to normal, how it was before using this command. But this is a good setting. I enabled it, or I set disable to yes, and I had no problems. So yeah, it is a power saving feature, like I said. So we don't need that on a gaming PC optimized for performance. All right, so let's move on to the graphics driver thing, and we want to debloat the NVIDIA driver. And so how to go about it? Like uninstalling the NVIDIA driver is usually not enough because there's a lot of residual stuff. We want to ideally use DDU for that, which is the display driver uninstaller. So you can download it from this website. And basically how it works is you need to boot your computer into safe mode and then you run DDU, and and that's pretty much it. And then it's gonna just take care of it. It's a pretty powerful software. It will remove the GPU drivers for you, and then you can reinstall the new ones. As far as a guide goes, how to do it, it's right here. So I recommend you read this guide. Something could be messed up. Like this is a pretty powerful software. I would recommend already creating a system restore for this and all of the future steps, since it's getting more and more advanced. All right. But this is not a big deal. So you can use DDU, you don't have to, but optimally you will want to use it. So look up the guide how to do it with the DDU. Then for the driver itself, we want to debloat it. So to debloat it, download NVSlimmer, and so use this link. Then we want to go to the NVSlimmer, unpack it, and that is how it looks. So launch it. It actually found the driver. Actually, let me show you. So first thing, all right, download this, go to the driver website. So nvidia.com, download, and put in all of your GPU specs in here. So for me, it's RTX 4080, Windows. You want the game ready driver for gaming. We want this one. And, you know, click search. It will show you what is the newest version. I just downloaded it a second ago. I actually need to do this update also. So yeah, I'll do it after I'm done recording. All right. So anyway, here's the package. You want to point the NVSlimmer into the directory of the package. So for me, it's in downloads right here. So let it know where this file is once it asks you. If you have already debloated something, then it will already know the location. And that's how it looks. So basically, the NVIDIA driver comes installed with all of this stuff. We don't want this, like, you know, telemetry and all of this other stuff. So we only want the core display driver, install core. There's also physics, which is like a driver for some old graphics, something. I am not sure. You can disable physics. I keep it enabled. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but some older stuff can break without physics, I guess. I keep it enabled. Okay, whatever. And then the last thing is NVIDIA container. So NVIDIA container, from my understanding, is this exactly. So if you right click, go to NVIDIA control panel. So this window is container. I think so. So keep the container also and hit apply. So delete any modules that were not selected. We want to continue, yes. Then we want to install. I will not install it right now, but you know, it's just a normal. Then it's just a normal installation. You know, I go to custom or go express. I mean, go express or go custom. Perform a clean install, and if you perform a clean install, then it will clean all of the settings, which we'll take a look at right now. So how you want to set the settings. So let me take a look at this. All right, we're here. So in the settings, after a clean install, what you want to change in here, what is important, is you want to go to, first thing is ultra low latency mode, set it to ultra. If your PC is kind of old or not very good, then go to on. Ideally ultra. Max frame rate. In my PC build video, I had this set to 360, but for the maximum performance, you want this off. So no frame rate. It could lead to some stutters. So if you have stutters, you might want to cap, but for absolute maximum performance, you want max frame rate off. Then we got power management, maximum performance always. Then we have texture filtering, quality, want this set on high performance. And there is the vertical sync set to off. If you have some kind of screen tearing and stuff like that, stutters, you might want to turn VSync on, but you know, for the lowest latency, VSync also off. And so those are the main settings. One more thing which we want to tweak in here is setting the power management to maximum performance for apps which are running in the background always. So for example, we have the Explorer here. Actually, we don't have the Explorer. Let's add the Explorer. So as you can see, I have Explorer right here. You will not see it if you have not messed with this before. So click on add right here. You can go to browse. And we are in this folder system32. Let's go back to Windows. And here you have the Explorer. So open, click on open, it's gonna be here. And we want to set this. It will be set in here. Power management, NVIDIA recommended. We want to set this to maximum performance. And yeah, so that's what we want. Maximum performance, hit apply. And there we go. Then we want to check the same thing. Go browse, Windows, go back to the 32, system32 folder, and there is the DWM, which is which is desktop Windows Manager. It's also running all the time. Set it to maximum performance so that it is not creating any stutters in your system. It's not power saving. Then we got NVIDIA control panel, which is also running by default it will be running on NVIDIA. This NVIDIA setting means it's a power saving mode. We want it on maximum performance. Then, you know, Steam, whatever else you're using. For example, Steam will also have this by default, will be set to NVIDIA. I got it changed already. Web Helper, Steam Web Helper will also be set to NVIDIA. So yeah, and other programs which you are running, in case they have this, you might also want to check them, set them to maximum performance. And so that is done. Disable full screen optimization. I don't know why it's in the graphics tab in here, but that's another thing you can do. So I think I actually took this from one video. I guess that's why I put it in here. All right. So you want to go to whatever game you're using. Open file location twice if you have a shortcut like this. And then we go to properties and compatibility, whatever kind of game that is or whatever program. Disable full screen optimization. What does this do is Windows full screen optimization is a feature for overlays essentially. So Windows is running those programs which seem to be full screen. It's really running it in borderless, but it's telling the game that it's full screen. So it doesn't have like a full control over the graphics driver, something like that. So we want this disabled so that it is an actual full screen. It can break some overlays if you're using overlays, like, I don't know, Xbox overlay or something, Steam overlay, I don't know. I've not tested this with overlays because I didn't use them, but if you do, then you know, check it out. And you know, disable this, hit apply. One more thing you might consider doing for some programs is run it as administrator. I don't recommend this. I don't recommend this always. Running this as administrator can make the Windows allocate more memory towards it. However, some programs break. For example, in OSU, if I set this to administrator, my tablet driver will not work. And yeah, or like the tablet driver itself, if I set as administrator, it will not work properly also. So, you know, this is something you can experiment with, but it's not always working. So be aware of that. But full screen optimization you can enable always. I mean, unless you're using those overlays, and it should be fine, should give you a nice boost. All right. Oh, okay, we're getting through this. There's only a bunch more stuff. All right, so bear with me. It's gonna be worth it. All right. Advanced stuff. We're starting the advanced stuff officially. This is officially the advanced stuff. So we're gonna start with updating the BIOS drivers. So this one is a bit dangerous in case you have some kind of short, because if your BIOS is updating and your electricity goes out while during the process, you could break your PC. How likely is that? It's not very likely. It's actually quite unlikely, but you know, it can happen. It will probably be fine. I did upgrade my drivers. So how to do it? Go to your manufacturer, so whatever that is. Actually, wait, you can actually check the version of the BIOS right here. So in this program we checked before, Intel driver and support assistant, it will tell you what is the version, or just check it manually. That also works. You just download it here. Whatever your motherboard manufacturer is, they will have a guide on how to do it. So I just followed this guide, and basically what you need to do is you download the file with the BIOS update, you put it on a pen drive, and you boot into the BIOS. You click on M-Flash, and then you just select it from the pen drive window will pop up. You just select this file, it will run, and that's it. It's done. One thing I recommend doing though before doing this is you might want to load optimize defaults, which is, I'm pretty sure, F6 on most motherboards. I'm pretty sure it's F6. Like, this will just restore all of the settings to default on your BIOS. So hit this before updating to make sure that everything works after the update, in case some settings were added or changed or something. And then after doing the update, you just redo all of your settings in the BIOS. So for example, all of this stuff, iGPU, hyperthreading, disable it again, and yeah, just to be, you know, extra safe, ensure that everything will work after the update. That's like the safest and cleanest way to go about it, and it should be no problem. So I did it, it worked. The guide is on your manufacturer's website somewhere, find it. All right. The next thing, and a big one also, is the enabling MSI mode for GPU drivers. So that is, so we're already getting into the interrupts. So MSI is like message signaled based interrupts. It's got nothing to do with like MSI, the company. So it's just a way Windows handles those interrupts. If you set this, you can get much better performance from your GPU. So we want to download it from here. I got it in the downloads somewhere. Actually, already unpacked it. Right here, MSI util. Run as administrator, otherwise it won't work. And you go to your GPU and you click, check this box, enable MSI. And now be careful. If you have some old PC or something, I mean old GPU, right? And it doesn't say that support modes is MSI, then don't check it because it won't boot, from what I read. So this can mess things up. If it says MSI, supported modes MSI, you're fine. You want this enabled. So enable, hit apply, reboot, and it's fine. And from this point on, I recommend making a system restore between each fix, just to be sure, you know. So to make a system restore, so just restore point, type it in, create a system restore, create, you know, name it ASDF, and, you know, hit on create to create a restore point, and you can load it in case you need it. So now I go to system restore, choose a different one we just created, for example, and, you know, we can restore the registry and everything to the settings it was before we messed with something in here. So moving forward, I would do this between each fix, just to be safe. And with that said, let's enter the registry. All right, so registry. We type in regedit, or just reg, it should be fine. And now we got a bunch of fixes in here. So let's start with the process scheduling. So process scheduling, what is that? Process scheduling is a process in Windows where to each thread, Windows allocates a certain amount of time, CPU time. And by default, it is set to short. So all of the threads are getting a short amount of time. We want to set this to long, because when it is set to short, then something called as context switching or something like that is introduced, which means basically because CPU only allocates a short amount of time, then one thread can be running and then it's an interrupt, and this thread is put back into like kind of reserve memory, then it runs this thread, then it switches it back. So this context switching, we want to minimize this because this creates latency. So is there any drawback to changing this? If you set this to long, your system can feel less responsive overall. I personally didn't notice this. So like, you know, opening a bunch of stuff, if you have many like processes running, it can become less responsive. However, it will run more efficiently because it will just start those processes and it will finish them, and then it will move on to next ones. Kind of, right? You get the idea. That's the idea. This is also better setting if you're doing anything with audio. So if you're doing audio stuff, you want this on long quantum always. From what I read, it's much better. So how to change it? We go to HKey local machine, exactly this path right here. Local machine, system, it is control set 001. Close this for now. Control, priority control, okay, and in here we have the Win32 priority separation. This setting, before you mess with the registry, you can either create a restore point, or you can also do something like this. Right click, export to desktop, call it ASDF, or let's just call it a scheduling backup. I don't know if I spelled it properly or whatever. Let's save it. And it is this. Create a file like this. If you double click this file, it will restore this value. So that's like a simple backup. So I recommend doing that before messing with it. And then we can start messing with it. So we want to change it to long quantum, and to be precise, we want to set it to long variable high foreground boost times 3. There are many other options. You can set it, for example, to long variable high foreground boost times 2. Times 3 is the best one. It means all of the processes are running with long quantum in your system. However, the foreground process, so your game, will get 3 times longer quantum still. So it will have very minimal context switching for it, and it will have low latency. That's what we want. So to input this, we go to Windows, priority separation, double click, and we input the hexadecimal or decimal. For hexadecimal it's 16, or for decimal it's 22. Whichever one, hit OK. That's it. It is changed. Reboot your PC and it should be in effect. Yeah, I did not notice any lack of responsiveness or something, but so I guess it's working. It's good. So that is something you want to change. Then, and if you want other variations of this, you can just read this whole article, and there are also other settings like this 2 times foreground boost. You can set everything to long. That's what servers usually use, like every process running on a long quantum. So it's a different value. Everything is in this post right here. So the next thing which we want to change, which is not exactly tied to your latency, it's like perceived latency more, is the data queue size for mouse and keyboard. However, I'll tell you it's quite noticeable, for me at least, in OSU. Basically, data queue size is like the rate at which Windows processes the data from your keyboard. So it is waiting for the data package to reach a certain size before sending it, and then it's waiting again and it's sending again, something like that. So we want to set this as low as possible. What is the drawback of setting it too low? Your keys might stop registering, or your mouse might start glitching and also not registering somehow, like jumping on the screen and stuff like that, from what I heard. From what I read and heard, I have not had these problems, but it can happen. So don't set it too low. So to set it, we go to this path right here, H key, local machine system. We go to current control set. Then we go to services, and then we go to KBD class. Keyboard class, KBD class, there it is, and we go to parameters, and the value which we want to change is the keyboard data queue size. So double click on this one, hit decimal, and then because hexadecimal becomes weird numbers with weird values, right now it will, on stock configuration, this is set to 100. If you want to, in general, it's not recommended to get this below 10, since it can, cause those glitches and stuff. This depends on your hardware, on your, all of the stuff that's in your PC. So on an older machine, you might only be able to go to 20 or something. Experiment with this. Under 10 is not recommended. I have no problems on 4, so I keep it here. Not tested lower. I don't know. Maybe the reason that it can handle 4 might be because of this keyboard. It's actually optical, so it's got very low debounce. So mechanical keyboards have debounce, so if you press the key, there's a period of time where you need to, where like next key press will not register because, so that it doesn't double click. But in optical keyboards, it's like shorter. Maybe that's the reason. Anyway, I don't know, but 4 is working for me, so I'm keeping it. Experiment with this, try going lower and lower. I would start at like 4D, maybe. 4D should work for everyone. And just go lower from there. It's a nice change. It really feels more responsive, less latency. It is noticeable, especially in rhythm games. All right. And the next thing, more relevant for FPS players, is the MouseDataQueueSize, which will reduce your latency in the same way for the mouse. So to change that, we go to HKey local machine, current control set, services, mouse class, services. So here, change this to mouse class, mouse class, and parameters. All right, in case you don't have parameters in here, you might want to right click on mouse class, new key, and it will create a new key for you. So if you have not messed with this parameter should not be here. So just right click, new key, create a new key, call it parameters, and then inside this key we'll have the default, and you want to create the MouseDataQueueSize thing right here. So just right click, new, dword 32-bit value, and you will call it MouseDataQueueSize with the uppercase letters exactly like this. I did this one, right? And you might want to do the registry backup again, so just export it before messing with this. And yeah, and once you create it, you want to input the decimal value. I got mine set on 16 right now, not tried lower. I don't know, don't play FPS too much. So yeah, but also same as with the keyboard, just experiment with this, go as low as you are comfortable with, test it if it works, and it will be more responsive. It will feel great overall. So it's a great tweak to make for sure. All right, and with that, we are done with the registry. Yeah, nice. We're getting through it. All right, there is less and less. Okay, it's good. Next thing, services. We are nearing the end, as you can see. There's not much else. Services. Bear with me. Services. First thing, we want to, and really, make a backup. I started messing with this, and I didn't disable anything like sensitive. I didn't think I did. And something got messed up with the Explorer. If I clicked on any folder, it was opening for like 3 minutes, literally minutes. So I don't know. Do the backup. All right. So how to do a backup? First we do a backup, then we mess with this. All right. Type in this. Go to this website. And right here we have startup type. So we want to copy all of this, right? All of this script. It's a script. Control C, copy. Misclick. New. Text document. Open it up. Control V, paste. There it is. The script. Alright, now we save it. And we rename it .vbs. Alright, now it makes sense. As you can see, I have it done here twice even. So just create this file, registry backup. So this file, you want to not call it BAT, you want to call it VBS. Yes, right, now it looks like this, that's good. So we create a new folder for it. Once you run it, you double click it, it will create, it will create 2 files for you. One is BAT and one is rec. so this is a backup for your startup, and this is for your registry. In case something gets messed up by you disabling services, you boot into safe mode. So you go to restart, shift click on this, boot into safe mode. You can find a guide on that. You can need to click some options. It's not hard. Just same as with DDU, boot into safe mode, and you're just gonna click on those two states, these two files. So double click on this, it will load it back up. Then you reboot into normal mode and it will work. That's what I did. Do the backup, it's pretty important. All right, so now in the services, there is a list on a website which I followed pretty much. If I couldn't find information on those services, I did not disable them. So I disabled exactly those on my PC and everything is working with no problem. So like this, program compatibility assistance service. I checked all of this stuff. I honestly don't remember. It's fine if it's disabled. All right, let's open the services. So we'll open the services.msc exactly. I just type in services, it's gonna pop up here, and we go by status. You see they're running ones, and they have also startup type. So if it is automatic, then it's starting on every Windows startup, and they are running in the background always. If it's manual, that means when you open a program that requires it, then it will start. So if you're not sure, I recommend putting it on manual. Hit properties. Maybe I can change this one. Properties, and change the startup type to something else. So if you're not sure, I recommend setting it on manual. If you're sure you don't need something here, you can disable it. So the stuff to disable is on this list. And I followed it. However, if I checked it also, all of those things, if I couldn't find information, I didn't disable it. All right, so the ones which I disabled is program compatibility assistance service. I honestly don't remember what that is, but I did disable it. Works without it, it's fine. Downloaded maps manager, it's like Windows maps, something like that, so probably never gonna use it. Unless you're using it, then don't disable it. Parental control, if you're not using it, disable it. Print spooler is for printers. If you have a printer and you're using it, then don't disable it because it won't work, but I don't have a printer, so I disabled it. No reason to have it running. Retail demo service, it's for retail demo, don't need it unless you're doing retail demo. Network connection broker, I am not sure. This might be for some smart devices or something like that. Smart home stuff, I don't know. So I don't know, I don't use any of that stuff, so I disabled it. Windows biometric service, I also don't remember. I did this some time ago. I disabled it, no problem. Geolocation is the geolocation. Don't need it, whatever. Unless you need it for something, then you might keep it enabled. Connected devices platform service. Actually, this might be for the smart devices, smart something, synchronizing and sending stuff. I'm not sure, honestly. I disabled it. I did. Do the backup and you can mess with it later. If something breaks, then just load the backup. Like I said before. Go into safe mode and load the backup. Alright. I did disable it. Radio management service is for radio. If you're not using radio, then disable it. Alright, and that is the services which I disabled. And then the next thing, we type in msconfig to disable the rest of it. Go to system configuration. We have services. Hide Microsoft services, very important. Don't disable this stuff. This can really mess up stuff, like something will not work if you disable this. So don't disable. Hide all Microsoft services. And sort by status. So now I have the driver support and assistant tool. I will uninstall it I always uninstall after using it, so whatever, it will be gone soon. I have the NVIDIA container running for no real reason. I don't know, I just don't disable it. I don't know what it is about this container. I just keep it on, whatever. Like not that big of a deal, right? It's just one process. Bonjour is something for Apple compatibility, I think. And there are those 3 Intel services which you can disable. You can just hit disable all and it will be fine, right? So yeah, should be fine even without this container. I will not disable it for no apparent reason, but you can also disable the container, should be fine. The Intel services are fine if you disable them. I did research on that. I have them disabled, it works, all right. And that is it for the services, all right. Yes, last thing, pretty much. Set manual interrupt affinity for drivers. That is a bit hard to do, but we'll get through it. So, you know, it's not as straightforward. So, how to do it? What is interrupts? Interrupts is if a driver is running and then Windows basically tells it, hold up, we need to do this first, not this, you know, stop this first, do this. So that's the interrupts. And we want those interrupts to be handled on the least busy cores on the CPU so that they don't have any wait time before they are processed. So to do it, we will set it to the cores which are least busy in our system. So how to do it? Well, we probably want to launch LatencyMon and just run some kind of game. All right, so let me spoil it, whatever latency there is. There's actually quite some latency from something, all right. But that is probably the OBS, all right, whatever. So a bit of a spoiler, all right. Anyway, how to do it? You want to go to CPU and, you know, play your game for like an hour or something, 3 hours, I don't know, that doesn't matter. And just check how your latency is. You want to look at the DPC count. So sort it by the highest or lowest. So the one with the least amount of DPC, we want to fix the DPC latency. That's what we're looking for, to get the lowest average possible. So this is the core which was servicing the lowest number of those DPCs. So right now it's the CPU 13 after setting a bunch of other stuff because I got this assigned already. And you can also look at the execution time or highest execution and just find like a balance between lowest DPC count and like lowest execution somewhere in here. So like a nice core here probably would be core 8, since it's got a bit more than this, but it's got a bit lower time, right? So that's kind of how you determine it. There's no better way to do it. You just need to experiment and see what is least busy in your system, in your CPU. In general, as a general guideline, the last core, so in my case CPU 15, which is the 16th core, since it starts with 0, should be least busy. It is an efficient core. So you can set your GPU on that or otherwise. I will go into how I set it in a second. But how, okay, so we know how to determine which core is busy and which is not. So now how to actually assign it. To assign it, we want to download this program, Microsoft Interrupt Affinity Tool. Download it. I think it is this one. Yes, this one. Run it as administrator, otherwise it won't work. And we got this. Simultaneously, we open Device Manager once again. Device Manager, View, Sort by devices by container. Best way to view it from my experience. And then we take a look at our stuff. So for example, got the cam link, got the interrupt for this. I don't know if it's needed, but anyway, all of your devices, keyboards, probably most important alongside mouse. So this Saber, this is a mouse. This is my keyboard. you know, tablet, audio interface, all this stuff you want to set those interrupts for. So, as well as GPU. So, how to go about it? Click on Properties, General. As you can see, location in your PC, it is connected to port 4 on hub 5. There it is connected. Details. So, for example, if you were to find this, which is a mouse, we go here and we hit U for USB, USB. We look at location info and object name. So that's not it. Oh, we got something, port 2, hub 5. So that's not it. U again. There is port 4, hub 5. So port 4, hub 5. And then device object name, just to be sure. Click on details, property, and it is here, physical object name, and in this code USB PDO 13. And that is matching, so we got a match here, port and hub, and also match of this. So we know that this is the mouse. It is on the hub, port 4, hub 5, in this PC. So set mask, and according to whatever core you have this assigned to, which we determined a second ago with this, we want to set it on like a least busy core, right? So choose just one core. If you have hyperthreading enabled, then hyperthreading, then you want to set it on even numbers, because all the numbers will be those hyperthreads. So like if you have hyperthreading still enabled, then go 0 or 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 or 10, right? Don't go to 1, 3 or 5, all right? And yeah, whatever you have determined to be the least busy core, set it to this, set mask, hit OK, reboot and check it. I will give you just a general idea. So that's how I got this allocated exactly on my devices. So for this is probably not the best thing to do, to like, you know, just copy it, but for my system, 13700K, i7 CPU, that's how it's working. So my audio interface is on core 14, my GPU is on core 3, and that is kind of weird, because actually it is not the least busy core. I don't know if this is the best way to go about it, but the first 8 cores in my CPU are performance cores, and the next 8 are efficient cores. So performance cores run at a higher clock, so they have a higher clock, base clock, right? So I figured I'll put my GPU on my least busy performance core, which is core 3, because if I set my GPU to core 15, for example, then this efficient core 15 will go on the DPC count all the way here. So it will be second always, because the 0 is for the system. So this is always the biggest, never set anything to 0. And then, you know, if you set it to 15, then it will probably be the second one right after this one. So I set it to the least busy performance core. I don't know if this is the best way to go about it. Maybe you should just set it to the least busy period. That's how I did it. I don't know. Experiment and see. If you set it in a wrong way, you can get worse performance. Yeah, but still better than having it managed by Windows randomly. Okay, just experiment and see. Okay, mouse got set to 13, tablet 9, keyboard 8, core 8, and capture card 11. So all of those are efficient cores, and this one is a P core because of what I just said. Yeah, I don't know if this is the best way. That's how I have it set up. And yeah. So, you know, we went over how to set it for the mouse. So let's just for reference set it for the keyboard, let's say again. So to set it for the keyboard, you will do exactly the same thing. Go to properties and hit U on this tool. U port 1 hub 5. Okay, that might be this. Details, physical object name, USB PD09, okay, and that is exactly the same thing. So Vulkan Pro TKL, that is the keyboard. Set mask, and set mask to a CPU, same thing. If you want to do this for the GPU, then I hit N for NVIDIA, GeForce, set mask, and I have it set on CPU 3, as you can see. And yeah, that is how you set it up. One thing to note about this is after each driver update, so if you update your driver with NVIDIA, with the NV Slimmer and do all of this stuff, or in general make an update, you will have to redo this each time. So just remember to do it after each update. And that is also true for the MSI thing here. So after each graphics driver update, you need to redo this MSI thing as well as this interrupt thing here. Why is it not closing? What? Oh, I close the dialog. Alright. So, wow, we actually have it done. So that is it. We set the manual interrupt affinity for drivers. The very last thing which I found that could help you with the latency is making sure that your USB devices are plugged directly into the CPU and not through the chipset. What does that mean? For example, in my PC, a photo taken from the PC build video. If you haven't checked it out, then check it out. Alright, let's get into it. So there are all of those ports. Those 4 ports, blue ones, those are red ones, and there are those 2 USB-C, whatever. Some of those ports go into the CPU, and some of them go to the CPU, but through the chipset. You want to plug all of your important stuff, like keyboard, mouse, that you want the lowest latency on, to the ports which are going directly into the CPU. In my case, those are the 4 blue ports. I actually had this plugged into the red ones before. So I found out later, I thought those are the faster ones, but actually it's the blue ones on this exact motherboard. How to check it? Let's go, find your motherboard's manual, like a sheet like this, and then we're gonna scroll down and find this somewhere in here. It should be somewhere. Okay, it is right here. Right, this is in German, but whatever. So, as you can see, number 2, USB 3.2 Gen 1, whatever, from hub GL3523. That is the CPU directly. So, number 2, those 4 ports right here are going through the CPU, directly to the CPU, and those 3.2 Gen 2, 10-bit, whatever, going from Z790 chipset. So those right here are going through the chipset. That's how you determine this. If you have some old motherboard, this info might not be displayed, or all of the ports might be going through the chipset from what I read. Check it out. Maybe write an email to the manufacturer if you are not sure, or if you can find information. I don't know. But in general, that's how you check it. And you want it plugged into those ports going directly into the CPU. And so we have it done. One more thing. So let's look at the latency right now. And there is one more thing which I wanted to take a look at. So the latency right now, after me recording this, as you can see, it was running all the time, OBS, Chrome, bunch of stuff running. That is probably from the OBS store port, like a huge DPC routine. But overall, it's not looking too bad. Alright, some average measured interrupt to this DPC latency. This is the number you want to get the lowest, as low as possible. Obviously, you're not supposed to check the latency while something is running. Alright, so I'll just say it right now. You're supposed to check the latency when nothing is running on your PC. So turn off everything, every program, clean boot, and then check it. So I'm just saying, all right, I got this fixed. It's just, you know, you should check it with nothing running. Okay, so those are the results. Not terrible compared to what it was. It was something like this. It was actually consistently 22,000, so it was pretty bad. But now it's better. All right, so that is that. One more thing which I wanted to go over is what this guide is based on. So this guide is mostly, for the most part, based on Calypto's latency guide. So thank you, Calypto, for amazing guide, very comprehensive. You know, all the links in the description to this guide and other videos which I watched and stuff, if I remember, because there's a bunch of stuff. And I wanted to go over over the stuff which I didn't do. That is linked in this guide. So if you want to mess with this even more, you can still mess with it. And for example, hypervisor off, this is something with the virtual machine, so this is anyway disabled, pretty sure. Idle disable, we got this. I talked about this, it will give you more voltage, up to you if you want to disable it. In device manager, he's actually got many more devices you can disable, so you might want to look into this in case you want to keep disabling more of them. I didn't find information by myself on some of those, and if I didn't find information, I didn't disable them, so I only disabled the ones which I showed you before. However, there's more stuff if you want to. Yeah, you can disable your antivirus. I don't recommend, probably not the biggest difference, but you can for a fact. Optional features, right, we're going to go to run, optional features, hit enter, and there is something like this. So I got it looking like that right now. Before I had it something like this, so I guess I disabled like some of this, something in here. Print and document services, remote differential compression, I guess I disabled that. Whatever, this is probably not the biggest deal, but you can disable that also if you feel like it. DWM, this is Windows 7, we got this set to max performance. VBS, this thing is the core isolation which I was talking about. That's exactly this VBS thing. Disable fast startup. Oh yeah, I recommend doing that also. So once again, I mean, I got this also disabled. I don't know if it made any difference, but you go to power options, choose what the power buttons do, change settings that are unavailable, and turn on fast startup, turn it off so that the PC completely turns off. When you turn it off, powers down completely. Yeah, I have it disabled. Yep. So I recommend doing that also. Process scheduling, what is done. There is the Spectre meltdown protection. This is for Spectre meltdown. This is like some hacker attack thing that is called Spectre and meltdown. I didn't disable it. You can, from what I read, it doesn't make much of a difference, maybe like 1 FPS or something, so whatever. Process scheduling, got this done. Steam browser, MSI, got this done. This is done. Settings, interrupt affinity, got this also done and explained. Oh yeah, there's one more thing you can do with process lasso. That is, you can set affinities for programs. So for example, I could set an affinity for the OBS, that it would that the interrupts would be serviced on a particular core. I didn't mess with it, but you can do that. So you can set those affinities, interrupt affinities for drivers, but also for programs. Yeah, so that's one more thing you can do. And that is the end of this guide. All right, so with that, the guide is finally done and reviewed. Man, am I tired now? This was pretty long, all right, but we got through it. All of the links, this whole text file will be in the description, so review it, do your own research and mess with all of this stuff. It will for sure fix your latency. I'll probably make another test with nothing running just to show you that it is for a fact fixed. Thank you for watching. Let me know what's your experience with this. Should be fixed. And I'll see you in the next video. Subscribe to the channel. Oh, subscribe. Explosions. Bye bye.